Hello everybody, my name is Tom Whitaker. I teach several modules on Spanish and Latin American film here at the University of Warwick, and I'm really excited today to be able to introduce the film Volver, which I know for many of you study this for your A-level. This is one of my favourite Pedro Almodovar films, and as you might know already, this film was made in 2006. And like many of the films that he's made since the start of the new millennium, it's a more somber, thought-provoking film. Okay, so it's quite different from the kind of madcap comedies that we see in the early period of his filmmaking in the 1980s and 1990s. Okay, so let's begin with the title, Volver. What does Volver mean? Well, we know that Volver means coming home or returning. So what is the significance of the title to the film? Well, the title, I think, alludes to several different types of returns. So first of all, we see a return to two of Almodovar's most important actresses, Carmen Maura and Penelope Cruz. We see a return to the theme of motherhood, the theme of maternity, because previously he'd made a film that was about men, Mala Educación. And then finally we see a return to a region where he grew up in Spain, and that's Castilla-La Mancha. So what we see is a return to rural Spain. Now I want you to think first of all about the film's opening sequence. You'll notice that there is a tracking shot that moves from right to left, yeah? Tracking shot of the cemetery. Now this is quite unusual because in film, tracking shots usually move from a left to right. So think about how this opening camera movement evokes this sense of going backwards. We see elderly widows in a village cemetery sweeping their husbands' tombstones, and we also see them sweeping the tombs that await them as well. Now, Almodovar's films have been seen very much as a celebration of Madrid, a celebration of urban Spain, and Madrid for him has very much been symbolic of Spain's democracy and Spain's embrace of modernity. Yet despite his excitement and love of the capital city Madrid, he still nevertheless has a nostalgia for rural Spain. And he has a nostalgia for rural Spain because this is the region, in particular the region of Castilla-La Mancha, which is the location of the film. This is where he grew up as a child. Now, it's often been said that Spain is an urban country, but an urban country that also has a kind of rural memory. Think about how Spain's industrial revolution was actually very relatively recent. Okay, so Spain doesn't become properly urbanized until the 1960s, when many people, like Pedro Almodovar himself, migrated from the countryside to the city. So there's a much closer connection between the rural and the urban in Spain than there is, say, in Britain. Now think about the use of space, the use of setting in the film. So we see how Raimunda, the protagonist, who's played by Penelope Cruz, we see how she and her family live in Vallecas, which is a working class barrio, a working class district of Madrid. But we'll see her also driving back and forth between Madrid and rural Spain. And on the way, you'll notice that there are several kind of wind turbines in the background. And these, of course, these wind turbines evoke the windmills of Spain's most famous novel, and that's, of course, Don Quixote. And Don Quixote, like Volver, was also set in Castilla-La Mancha. You'll notice that throughout the film, characters often allude to this wind. Yeah, there's this wind that somehow makes everybody mad in the region. In Don Quixote was also a character who was driven mad, most famously, by the end of that novel. Now, some more broader reflections on Pedro Almodóvar as a director who has his own particular style and set of themes that he explores throughout the whole of his filmography. Now, we could call Almodóvar, for instance, an auteur, or in Spanish, autor. And an auteur is a term that we use in film studies to describe a director who has complete control over the filmmaking process, and a director who has their own unique vision, their own unique worldview that is highly individualized. So we know, watching just a couple of minutes of an Almodóvar film, that it belongs to Almodóvar. So I want you to think about three aspects that I think are important to his auteurist style. Now, the first one is the importance of women in his films. So Pedro Almodóvar has often been referred to as un director de mujeres, a director of women. And his films often concern themselves with the personal and the emotional world of women. Now, women are frequently portrayed as resilient, frequently portrayed as in groups where they're often helping each other, caring for one another. And I want you to think about how this might be the case in Volver. If we think about the framing, for instance, we see lots of long shots and lots of medium shots where there are several female characters together within the frame, as if to emphasize that theme of female solidarity visually. In his films, narratives are often told from the point of view of women, and usually women that have been oppressed by men. And as such, if women are placed centre stage in his films, then men are often sidelined, as they are, I think, for the director, very much a reminder of Spain's greatest, most important patriarch, and that's, of course, the dictator Francisco Franco, who died in 1975. But despite his death, his influence in Spain is still felt today. So you'll notice that in many of his films, male characters come off quite badly. They're often quite unstable, weak, psychotic, toxic. And we know that this is particularly the case in Volver. We know that Raimunda and Paula have both been abused by men. And so abuse is a very important theme in this film, in the same way that it's an important theme in many of his other films. Except for Raimunda's husband, we see very, very few men in the film. And most of the older ones, of course, have died. And we see their graves, don't we, in that opening sequence. And we hear Sole, the character, say very early on in the film that las mujeres aquí viven más que los hombres. Okay, so that's one theme, the importance of women. Another thing that I want you to think about, the second thing, is music. Now, music is an important feature in his filmmaking. And his filmmaking has often been referred to as melodramatic. And melodramas, the term melodrama comes from the Greek melos, and melos means music. So not only is the orchestral score that we hear throughout the film very, very important, it's important because it kind of influences how we feel as the audience, but you'll notice that songs have a crucial function in the film too. Songs often serve to express what the female characters cannot express with words. Now, of course, the most important song of this film is Volver, again returning to the significance of the title. And what we hear in a key sequence is a tango, Volver, which was originally written in 1934, originally performed by Carlos Gardel. But what we hear in the film is a flamenco version, so a Spanish version of this song, because tango is associated with Argentina. And this version is recorded by the very, very important flamenco singer Estrella Morente. And of course we see Penelope Cruz, she's lip syncing, so her voice is dubbed by Estrella Morente singing Volver. And think about how the lyrics, la letra of this song, really kind of resonates with the themes of the story, the themes of the film. Now, the final thing that I want you to think about with regards to the film is its use of what we would call mise en scène. Mise en scène in Spanish is puesta en escena. Now, mise en scène essentially is the term that we use to describe everything that you can see within the frame. So the setting, the location, the costume, the placement of the actors, everything that has been placed in front of the camera falls under this definition of mise en scène. Now, Pedro Almodóvar is a very meticulous director, so he makes sure that everything in the mise en scène is perfectly designed, perfectly thought through. He doesn't leave anything to chance. And you'll notice that, of course, one of the key features of Almodóvar's mise en scène is, of course, his fascination with colour. And colour is very, very important. We see often in his films a very kind of bright, saturated palette of colours. And in this film, you'll notice that, of course, the colour red is omnipresent. So we'll see red almost in every single frame in this film. Think about Raimunda's outfits. Think about the colour of blood on the knife. And then when we come to the funeral scene, all of a sudden we see a lot of black. And so that comes as quite an interesting contrast to the colours that we see throughout the rest of the film. So those were the three things that I want you to think about. So firstly, women, so female identity. The second one is sound and music. And the third one is the use of mise en scène. I hope you found this video useful, and I wish you the best of luck with your A-levels. Thank you.